Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to another episode of Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. And the first couple of questions you might be asking yourself is, first off, what the heck are we looking at? And second, holy crap, this video's in 720p. What's up with that? Well, I'll tell you what's going on here. So, what we're looking at right now is the main menu screen of Nintendo's new Wii U console. And sadly, the reason I have to point that out is that as of the time of this recording, not a lot of you guys have gone out and bought these systems. You really should rectify that, because the Wii U is pretty friggin' awesome, and I'd like to see it sell more so that we get more games for it. We're also recording this in 720p because the game I'm going to be showing you, at least in the presentation style we have it on here, actually does upscale to HD a little bit, so it's actually worth outputting the video in HD. I do most of my videos in 480p because most of the games that I show you I'm capturing in their native format, which of course was standard definition. Most of them actually were even lower resolution than 480p. But when we do stuff through the Wii U, as well as when we do retro titles through other consoles, which I will be showcasing in the future, if they have upscaling to HD, then I will output it that way so you can hopefully see the subtle differences. So, what we're going to be taking a look at here is F-Zero for the Super Nintendo, the first Super Nintendo game featured on Retro Flashback, but we are going to be taking a look at it through the Wii U's Virtual Console service. Now, some of you that may have owned the original Wii might know that there was a service on there called the Virtual Console as well, and it actually ended up with a pretty expansive library of retro titles from a number of different developers and publishers on a number of different platforms, both consoles and even a couple computers, which is pretty awesome. It was a really good service, and actually I have all my original Wii Virtual Console games transferred onto this Wii U as well. But the problem with the original Wii Virtual Console is that it was very bare bones. You bought the game, you got it, it was the original game, the emulation was bang on in most cases. But that was kind of it. It didn't upscale, partially because the Wii was not an HD system, but it didn't upscale, it didn't have any other frills, you paid your money, you got your retro game, and that was that. And that was fine. But now, Nintendo has decided to up their game a little bit with the Wii U, and they have launched a new Virtual Console service on the Wii U. At this point, there isn't a lot for it. At the time of this recording, there's only 3 games out, and you can actually see them all on the main screen here. But to try to kick this off and to get some interest going, Nintendo is launching these titles on the eShop for the insane price of 30 frickin' cents. Like, that's just awesome. Like, that's like the third of the cost of most crappy mobile games. They only stay that way for a month, and then they go up to, I think, around $5 or so, depending on the game. I currently have all 3 of the titles available. I bought them all for 30 cents. And I definitely recommend keeping your eye on that, because they plan to do that for a little while. I do hope that the Wii U Virtual Console does get a lot of titles from other publishers and from other platforms. The problem with the Virtual Console and the original Wii was that while a bazillion and one people bought Wiis, very few people put them online, and even fewer people actually bought any digital content on them. So the Virtual Console was generally pretty niche as far as stuff goes, and I don't remember ever seeing any press releases from publishers touting how much money they made from it, and that's generally a sign that it kind of wasn't a major hit. So I hope that this does well enough to bring more stuff here, because I love the fact that Nintendo is giving people a means to play these older titles and throwing in some extra frills as well. So, while we will be taking a look at F-Zero, this video is going to be a little longer because I'm also going to be showcasing the unique features that the Wii U Virtual Console brings to the table, and why it may be worth your time considering buying some retro titles through here instead of getting them through some other methods. The one thing that does suck is that some of these games, actually all 3 of the ones I'm showing you right now, I believe, were released on the original Wii Virtual Console, and the one crappy thing is that if you bought them there, you can still get them from there, but you do not get a free copy of them on the Wii U Virtual Console. You don't even get a discount. You gotta buy them again. I hope Nintendo rectifies that someday. I doubt it. Simply because since Virtual Console was so niche, they know that anyone who really wants to play these games again with these added features will probably pay again. It's cynical, but, it's business. What can I tell you? That's kind of unfortunate, but it's going to affect a small number of people. I mean, I'm among them, but, I'm a niche of the niche, let's just say. So, anyway, I've been blabbing on about this long enough. One extra little programming note, I may sound a little bit different on this video. Because I'm capturing this off a console, I'm actually using my Elgato Game Capture HD device, and its software does audio recording differently than the setup I use on my PC. I kind of don't like the way it's doing it. I'm having some consistency problems with audio, as you may have heard if you've listened to my other videos. This being a new thing, I'm still trying to figure that out. I am hoping to come up with a more unified system that will make my commentary sound the same and better quality wherever I'm recording, but that's an ongoing process, so hopefully you'll bear with me on that. Anyway, enough of that jazz, so let's get going with F-Zero here. So as I said, I'm going to show you some of the unique features that the Wii U Virtual Console brings to this before I start showing you the game. But let's get this going, shall we? So we'll switch menus here. So the first thing that's cool about this, and arguably one of the coolest features that I unfortunately can't actually show you directly, is that you have the option with every Virtual Console game, at least everyone that's come so far, of playing it either on your TV or directly off the Wii U gamepad tablet controller. That's actually how I'm playing this while I'm recording, because it's actually a little easier for me to just quickly look down at it while I'm controlling it. So right now I've just run the game, and we've got the title screen here. It's actually up on my plasma TV that's in front of me, but it's also running in real time, completely lag-free on the Wii U gamepad. And this is really awesome. One of the Wii U's big selling points was that if you had a house where maybe you had one TV and multiple people wanting to use it, that with a number of games, not every game sadly, you could be playing it and at the touch of a button send it down to the gamepad, let someone else use the TV while you continue to use to play your Wii U game sort of in your hands. It's a really cool idea, and the fact that you can do that with all the Virtual Console stuff is just awesome, and it works really, really well. You can take the gamepad a decent amount away from the Wii U console before you start getting video lag, and it's really nice. We live in a house where, like our household, which is just my girlfriend and I, we don't tend to fight over the TV very often, but it's a nice feature to have, and for people with larger families, I can certainly see that being of benefit. So that's really cool, but here's the other neat thing. So, anytime you're playing one of these games and you hit one of the triggers on the gamepad, check this out. So, this is possibly the coolest thing that the Wii U Virtual Console brings, and this, as I understand it, will be standard on every Virtual Console release. So, you got a couple of options here in this menu. Obviously, the top one kind of needs no explanation, but I'll give you one anyway. That's the reset button. It is the equivalent of just punching the reset button on the console that you're using. So if you're at a point in a game where things are not going so well, you'd like to do it again, and you don't just want to, keep playing until you game over or whatever, you can just bring that up, hit A, or just tap the screen, and just like you hit reset on the console. Handy little feature for certain games if you need it. So what you can also do here is you'll see if you go down to controller settings, what you can do if you want is you can use the Wii U gamepad controller, or if you have Wii remotes and the game has a button configuration that supports it, you can either use a Wiimote to control it, or if you have one of the Wii Classic controllers, which pair off of the Wii remote, they actually dongle off of the Wii remote, you can use that as well if the game supports it. On the Wii Virtual Console, you could also use a GameCube controller. You can't do that on the Wii U, unfortunately, because there is no GameCube support in this console. That's kind of a bummer, because I don't know why a lot of people didn't, but I actually really liked the GameCube controller, and it was great for playing retro titles. I don't actually have any of my Wii remotes paired with this, but you know what? The gamepad is really interesting. If you haven't played with one yet, Nintendo's been really bad at communicating this to people. If you haven't played with a Wii U yet, the gamepad probably looks like it would be really cumbersome and unergonomic and just not very fun to use. It's really not. It's actually really, really excellent. I got this Wii U for Christmas. I've played several games on it. I played through New Super Mario Bros. U. I played through Zombie U. and I've played a bunch of Nano Assault Neo, and all with this controller, and it's light, it's very ergonomic, and it's very comfortable even at long stretches. So I think it actually works really well for these older titles. So I'm content just using this, to be honest. It's also got all the buttons any of the consoles that are going to be emulated through this will ever need. But what's the coolest thing? Well, it's got to be this restore point feature on the left here. So there's a lot of Puritans out there who are going to go, oh, this is, you're cheating when you use this, and it's defeating the spirit of the original game, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, what the hell ever. This is a completely optional feature, and much like, I've seen a lot of these are a lot of the same people who will complain about modern racing games on consoles that have a rewind feature where if you make a mistake in a race, you can press a button, go back in time, and basically undo your mistake. And yeah, I guess it's kind of cheating in a way, but you know what? It's completely optional. Don't use it if you don't want to. For people who, especially younger people or more casual players who don't want to spend hours and hours and hours perfecting a game down to the finest detail, this is a great option for them. If you're at the beginning of a particularly difficult stage and you're in a game that either doesn't have any continues or doesn't have a lot of continues, this is perfect. You can set a restore point at any time you want. And it's kind of like taking a laptop and putting it into sleep mode. When you bring it back, it comes back to exactly where you were. So, for example, we'll create a restore point where we are now, which is just the title screen, but whatever. So you do this, you just confirm it. It takes about a second, bang. And you'll see it actually screenshots it, which is really nice, so you can see where you are. So if we back out of here, and we'll just let this go into the attract mode here so that you can sort of see what I'm talking about. Come on, you're going to make me wait now that I have to commentate over this. You're going to make me look stupid, aren't you, game? Of course you are. There we go. So, say you're playing a game and it's not going so well and you made a huge mistake or whatever, and you're just like, I really want to go back and do that. No problem. Bring your menu up, load your restore point. This is kind of cool too. It not only gives you a screenshot, but a date and time stamps it, so that makes it a little easier to go back. So it reminds you, your current game progress and save data will be lost. So you want to go back, you confirm it. There it is, and when you back out, you're right back where you were. Particularly good for older games that have really nasty boss fights, I would say. Or if you're playing an RPG that has, a save system, but where the save points are spread out quite a ways, things like that. I could see that being really useful. I think this is a fantastic feature, and I really hope that this catches on for that reason. But yeah, so those are kind of the benefits of the Wii U's Virtual Console in particular, and yeah, I really like it, and I think Nintendo did a good job with it, and we'll see how it pans out. But anyway, so on to F-Zero. So, also known to many people as Mode 7, the video game. So this was a launch title for the Super Nintendo, and it's actually very fondly regarded. It is done a little bit in the style of Sega games like Hang On or something like that. It has shares a few traits with it, and basically what it is a super fast, basically hover car racing game. Apparently these games actually have a fiction. I didn't realize this, but later on in the future there's actually an F-Zero anime, which just blows my mind. But apparently the fiction behind this is that this is many hundreds of years in the future, and a bunch of rich billionaires with slothy lifestyles decided to pay to have like a sort of extreme F1 league created that's incredibly fast and where people can die and all this stuff. It's dumb. This game doesn't have a freaking story, like seriously. It's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, what's really cool about this game is that it was a showpiece for what was called Mode 7, and what Mode 7 is, it's a technology that actually, on reflection, and even at the time, looked kind of bad, but it was so neat at the time that it sort of blew everybody's mind. It basically allowed for a sort of pseudo 3D rendering. It was very low detail, very, very jaggy, very, very blocky, but it allowed for some very, very high-speed imaging that you could do that was just impossible to do with sprites in any kind of a realistic manner. And what's cool about it is, despite the fact that it doesn't necessarily look all that great, it's what made games like this possible. The reason people remember F-Zero so fondly is it's one of the few racing game series that actually gets a true sense of speed right. Like, you can see here that it looks like this guy, it says this guy's going 400 kilometers an hour, and it kind of looks like it. The biggest problem most racing games have is that it's generally, it doesn't feel like you're driving as fast as it says you are. It always feels like the world is moving very slowly around you. But, whoops, but in F-Zero, stuff was just crazy, crazy fast, and that was a really cool thing about it. This game's actually fairly basic on features. It doesn't have any multiplayer, not in this iteration. There were a number of future games in this series for various Nintendo handhelds, as well as the N64, and an amazing GameCube iteration called F-Zero GX that also had an arcade companion called F-Zero AX. GX was so good. Balls hard, but actually this was kind of hard too. And yeah, it was a neat concept. Bare bones game, but really, really good at what it did. So we're gonna show off a little bit of it here. So there's 4 cars in this game. Each of them has their own different statistics here. So you'll see, basically shows the max power, maximum speed, as well as its weight. So the main idea with this is that there's a number of tracks you go through. The tracks all have hazards and bonuses on them, and you also do have other drivers, and you can ram the drivers into the environmental hazards, and you do have the ability to take them out. You yourself can also be taken out. So it's kind of a twofold thing. You're focusing on getting in first place, not only by being fast and being a good driver, but by also, at later points in the game, taking other people out. This game gets hard enough that you basically don't have a choice. At some point, you will have to take other drivers out if you want to have a hope of really making some progress. So, because I got to talk over this, as usual, I'm going to wimp out and go for the easy stuff. So we're going to take the Blue Falcon, which is the sort of all-rounder balanced car, and we're going to start on Night League, which is the beginner class. Yeah, I can play better than this, but whatever. So, there you go. So, you saw that crazy zoom? That was Mode 7. And in fact, this entire game is Mode 7. Everything you're seeing here, the entirety of the track, all the other cars, everything is all Mode 7. And that's what was a little bit unique about this. Mode 7 was used in a lot of games on sort of a one-off basis. Basically, a lot of sprite-based games used it in sections to do a kind of neat effect. But rarely was Mode 7 used... Oh, you bugger. Rarely was Mode 7 used as the basis of the entire game. And that's what F-Zero did differently. And it was really amazing at the time, because, yeah, as 3D rendering goes, I mean, this is primitive as heck, right? Like, it doesn't look all that impressive. Like, the side of the track is really just a bunch of colored blur. There's a background, but it's super tiny. It's way off in the distance. Doesn't look that impressive at all, right? The cars actually look pretty good. I think they look pretty good. But as a whole, the game is very simplistic. But none of that mattered, because look at how fast I'm going. Like, my videos are encoded at 30 frames a second, so you're not getting the full feel. But this is a rock-solid 60 frames per second game. It is very fast, it is very fluid, and it really is cool. And considering this was a launch game for the Super Nintendo, like, at the time, everyone... Between this and Super Mario World in particular, everyone was just like, what? That's amazing! And it definitely does look really good. So, you've seen here in the couple of laps I've done the basic concept here. So, this area over here at the beginning of the track is the pits. And by driving over that, you see that ship comes down and gives you power. And power is basically life. It's your hit points. So I take damage by either hitting the sides of the track, by having other drivers ram into me. There are obstacles later in the game, track obstacles, not necessarily on the sides, that can do damage to you. And this is the lightest track that we're on right now, obviously. But, so we have the pits here, which help get you charged back up. You will need the pits later. It is very hard to go through this game without taking damage, and later on, if you don't go through the pits, you likely won't make it through the race. You'll also see that there's those sort of gravelly areas. There's a jump right there, and these gravelly areas do what gravel does in most racing games, which is it slows you down. So, if you want to try to stay off of that if possible. There's no real power sliding mechanic in this game, per se. If you let off the gas a little bit, you can make very, very sharp turns. And you see, this is how it's kind of like, hang on a little bit. Got that nice little smooth jazz in between levels. The game's like, yeah, you just went through this crazy hectic race. Now just sit there and chill a little bit, man. Have a nice glass of bourbon while you go in between races. And then it's like, what? Back you go. Yeah, anyway. I'm gonna review tonight. So, as you see, and the tracks, as is the case with most racing games, the tracks will get more complicated. The drivers will get more aggressive. As you go, the drivers get a lot more aggressive, actually. And it's a general progression. You know, things get harder as you go, but your goal is to get through the Grand Prix that you're in and attempt to place as high as possible throughout. There is also a scoring system. This is that's a sliding hazard there. It's really fun to, if you can do that right, you can do a really awesome high-speed power slide through there. I used to be really good at that back when I had my Super Nintendo, and this game was a lot newer. Yeah, there is a scoring system in this game. You do score points, I believe, based on what rank you're in when you cross the finish line, but it doesn't matter. The game has no leaderboard. It doesn't even have a top score. This is another one of those games, kind of like Codename Viper and a lot of other titles, where you're kind of like, why even bother keeping score if you're not going to provide any means to track it? If it's all got to be done on like a notepad or in your head, kind of what's the point? So when you see there, every time I cross the finish line and successfully complete a lap, I'm getting a speed boost, which are those little S symbols in the bottom right corner there. So you can use these whenever you want. In these early tracks, you don't really need them so much, but they are invaluable later on for gaining position when you're going up against the harder drivers on the harder tracks, and strategic use of them is vital. If you don't use those at the right times, you will have a very hard time clawing your way to the front and then staying there. You'll also see that I have a life counter in the bottom right there. That is basically does exactly what it says. If I run out of power, I can reincarnate 2 more times, but you generally don't want to get yourself blown up in here, because even early on, if you get blown up, you will lose enough position that it can be very hard to claw your way back to the front before the race ends. So I mean, obviously, you know, your goal is always that you don't want to run out of lives, or try to avoid dying whenever you can. But it's a little more critical in this. Though you can do it. You can claw your way back to the front. I've done it before. It's definitely possible. But this is the basic concept, and so you see that blinking guy there is actually, that means he's almost out of power, so if I managed to run him into the side, he would be gone. But once you get to the front of the pack, as I have been for a little while, to keep the challenge going, the game will continue to spawn cars in front of you. Oh, there we go. I guess that's one value of the score. I just got myself another life. And we're back to the smooth jazz. So the game will continue to throw sort of cannon fodder, red shirt enemies at you, even when you've got yourself up to the front, simply because it needs to keep the hazards going. Otherwise, there's very little challenge, right? Once you get to the front, if you're able to steer your way around the corners, then you're kind of, you don't have much to do, and that's both boring and easy. So that's how it does it. Is it will keep throwing just generic other enemies at you, which they are not nearly as aggressive as the 3 pack guys that you're up against, like that guy there. They will, these guys will pose much more of a threat than the sort of generic enemies that come at you. But that's common in most racing games, is that if you know, especially games that aren't trying to be simulators, is that when you get to the front, it's got to keep stuff coming at you so that you don't get bored, basically. But as you can see here, this track is definitely a little more complex than the ones earlier on in the game. Oh geez, that can happen too, is you can pinball yourself off the walls if you hit them at a certain angle, which can make recovery particularly difficult and cost you a lot of life. But you can see this track is definitely more complicated than the other ones. There's a lot more snaky turns, there's a lot more sort of hairpins involved, and you can see that the enemy cars are not a pushover anymore. It's actually a little tricky to get to the front, and you can see that I took a lot of damage from bouncing off the wall there, so I actually got to make some good use of the pit. And that's the thing, is unless you want to slow down in the pit and potentially lose some real positioning, the pit will not fully recharge you. You are going too fast, so if you go into the pit, even at its earliest point, there's no way for it to fully recharge you if you're down more than, you know, maybe 20% health. So you have to make a very, very quick choice there, which is, do I want to just get 20% health and hope I don't lose the extra while I'm on my way, or do I want to actually slow down, potentially lose some position, but get more power, and then claw it back later? As you can see, because I didn't take a lot of damage on that lap, I was able to gain back a little bit more there, but not so easy in the later levels. It can be really, really tricky to pull that off. But I've shown you the basic concept here. This is what's neat about this game, is that while it is technically a combat racing game, it is very much about strategy, because the combat is essentially bumper cars. You want to hit guys, and you particularly want to hit them into environmental hazards. You don't ever get any guns, you don't ever get anything like mines, you know, this isn't even as complicated as Mario Kart, in that there's no specialized power-ups, there's no anything like that. It is all about jockeying for position on the racetrack, and if you need to fight your enemies, smashing them off into the environment and letting it do the work for you. You can't just line yourself up behind a guy, hit him with missiles and machine guns, and be on your way. Oh, buggers. There we go. Thought you got me, did this. Oh god, maybe he did. Oh god, oh god. Oh no! Oh! No you don't! Man, that was a hairy one. But yeah, the one thing I really do wish that this game had was multiplayer. The amount of hours that I played F-Zero GX multiplayer on the GameCube with my friend Styles and his roommates when he used to live in a different part of the city a few years ago, oh man, so many hours of that. It was just a blast. And yeah, that was a pretty glaring omission in this game. I mean, it is very, very fun in single player. It's one of the best single-player racing games of this era, in my opinion, just because of the relatively unique mechanics and this crazy sense of speed. I don't really think anything did it as well as this did. Oh yes, I love those boosters. Except when that happens. So there's a little interesting twist. You see that the pit is kind of mandatory there. You actually can't lose it. But at the same time, it's in a very narrow field, so while you can't miss it, if you get hit while you're in there, or you don't steer properly, as I did, you actually can take as much damage as you gain. Theoretically, you could probably even get more damage than you recover, so that's a real tricky little environmental hazard they put in there, which I really like. Oh. There we go. I can concentrate a little bit there. So yeah, the lack of multiplayer is a bit of a glaring omission, but this game is still great on its own. And there are future iterations of it that did get multiplayer. I don't know why Nintendo, like, if I recall correctly, F-Zero GX on the GameCube actually did pretty well back in its day in terms of sales, and I don't know why Nintendo has let that series stagnate. I mean, interestingly enough, F-Zero GX was produced in conjunction with Sega, if you can believe it. Two rivals came together to make that game. And maybe it's because of that and the fact that the Sega studio that actually made the game no longer exists. Maybe that's why Nintendo hasn't made another one, because they think that they can't do it internally as well. I don't know, but like this on the Wii U with gorgeous HD graphics would just be, that would just be fantastic. So I'm hurting there. You also saw that it said limit 5 there. So what the game does as you progress as well is that there is a limit to how far back in the pack you can go. And if you go beyond that, that can basically mean game over as well. So you want to make sure, so you see the limit is actually increasing, so you see where it says safe 3 up there. It's basically like elimination mode in modern racing games. So basically what that means is if I cross the line and I'm not in a minimum of that position, then I'm basically out right away. You don't even get to finish the race. It's just like, nope, sorry. So that's an extra added layer of challenge that this game throws in. I actually forgot about that. That was a real bane of my existence back when I used to play this game a lot. Oh, well, I made it to the end anyway, and I got another life. What do you know? That was not a particularly good run, though. But I so hope Nintendo, especially since the Wii U isn't doing very well right now, Nintendo could stand to bring some of their older beloved properties out of retirement, if you ask me, and I would love to see an HD Wii U version of, like, heck, just remake F-Zero GX. You don't even have to do a new one. I would rather a new one, but just, this series was so good, and I really don't like the fact that it's been put back in the freezer. But I think this is a really good entry in the racing genre, particularly for the time. For a launch game as well, this was rather stunning high quality. And I think if you like high-speed racing games, this one stands the test of time. I mean, Mode 7... Yeah, Mode 7... Oh, I totally screwed that up. Mode 7... definitely doesn't have the oh wow factor now that it did back when this was when it was new, but you know, this still looks pretty cool. And I mean, this is a game that came out in the, you know, at the start of the 90s, and it's rock solid 60 frames a second high speed racing. I mean, it's pretty impressive what they did, and what they did with a system that was brand new at the time that no one really fully understood the guts of yet. I think it's pretty cool, and it's definitely worth checking out. If you can get this on the original Wii Virtual Console, and you can, I do recommend the Wii U version if you have a Wii U. If you don't have a Wii U, go get one because they're awesome. But you can get this in either place. I don't know if the Wii Virtual Console got any of the other F-Zero games. I don't actually have those. If they do have them, I should check them out for sure, because I didn't play a lot of the interim ones. But there's a lot of various iterations of this. I only ever played this one and F-Zero GX, but as I understand, the various different ones for the Game Boy Advance and the N64 were actually pretty decent games in their own right as well. They sort of all hold to the same core design principles, which is what makes this good. And that's what I like about this game, is that it isn't trying to be a jack of all trades. It takes a very simple core concept, does that in a very basic form, and just says, yeah, this is what we're about. We're going to do one thing really well instead of trying to do a whole bunch of stuff and possibly not be very good at it. And I always respect anyone who's willing to do that. A lot of games tried to do a lot of things at once and didn't do them well. And the ones that were narrowly focused often tended to be better experiences overall. So yeah, that is F-Zero, published and developed by Nintendo in 1990 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. We have been looking at the Wii U Virtual Console version, in addition to showcasing a few of the features of the Wii U Virtual Console itself and how they make things a little more interesting. And I'm gonna die horribly. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm on fire. Oh dear. So yeah, my next couple of videos, I am actually going to be showcasing the other two games that are out on the Wii U Virtual Console right now. And I do hope to showcase more of these going forward. I don't know if I'm going to buy every single one that comes out. We'll see. But I would definitely like to do more of these, because I think I'm all about showcasing these older titles, but also showcasing them in the sort of ideal modern way to play them. And this is the best way to play this game right now that I can think of. And, you know, it was only 30 cents. It's a little bit more now. I think it's about $5. But you know what? If you like this stuff, it's worth it. $5 still isn't that bad, you know. So I think that's pretty cool. My name has been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.